Welcome to the Temple Health Votes mandatory training. Thanks for signing up to be a volunteer with us. This training won't take very long, so hopefully we'll be able to send you right out to go help people register to vote. So the purpose of this training is to learn about some key deadlines and information regarding the upcoming Pennsylvania primary and general elections. And then we'll describe how to talk to people about voting, make sure that you're informed about the rest of our initiative, answer a few frequently asked questions, and then ask you to agree to Temple Health and Lewis Katz School of Medicine policies regarding talking about voting. Just so you know, this training is not sufficient for emergency day of balloting. So if you volunteered for that, please make sure you also watch the emergency day of balloting volunteer training. That's going to go through the specifics of how to help people vote from the hospital on election day. This is a general training that's required for all of our volunteers. So the mission of Temple Health Votes is to promote voter registration and civic engagement for Temple Health patients and members of the North Philadelphia community. Very important to note here that the Temple Health Votes initiative and any information shared through this initiative does not reflect an endorsement for or opposition to any candidate or political party. So the basics: who's eligible to vote? In Pennsylvania, you've got to be a U.S. citizen for at least 1 month, a resident of a Pennsylvania district for at least 30 days, and of course, you have to be 18 or over. Two key deadlines. The general election is on November 5th. Polls are open all day that day from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And the last day to register to vote is about 2 weeks before the election, October 21st. The upcoming Pennsylvania primary is April 23rd. Again, polls are open all day, and the last day to register to vote is April 8th, again, about 2 weeks before that election. So when you're talking to a person, either at a Temple Hospital lobby table or out canvassing in North Philadelphia, you're going to mostly follow these 4 steps. First, check to see if they're registered to vote. If not, help them get registered to vote. Guide them to make a plan to vote, either in person or by mail, and then educate them on how to vote by mail, and how to find their polling place. So step number 1 is really just to check if they're already registered. This is a very simple process. You'll have access to this PowerPoint, so all the links that I share in here will be clickable for you. And you can see here, this is the information that they're going to need to be able to check their voter registration status. They need their county, which for most of our patients and community members is Philadelphia. They're going to need their zip code, their first and last name, and their date of birth, and they'll be able to tell if they're registered to vote. If they're not, for most people that we interact with, we're going to be able to help them get registered online. So we can walk them through this process on our iPhone or theirs, on an iPad or on a computer if you're sitting at a table. And the only quick little caveat to this, because the form is fairly straightforward and easy to fill out, and we can certainly stand there with them and answer any questions as they're working to fill it out. One little caveat is if they don't have a driver's license, they are going to need to upload a photograph of their signature. And so we can help them with that as well. Basically, what I'd advise you to do is have a blank piece of paper with you, either out canvassing or sitting at a table. On that blank piece of paper, you can have them sign their name and then take a picture of it, and they can upload it as a part of uploading that form. Make sure they see you tear up their signature and throw it out at the end of that process. And you can probably answer most of the questions that they have as they go through the form, but if there are any questions that come up that you don't know the answer to, direct them to, or you can call together 1-877-VOTES-PA, which will have all the answers that you need. There are a few reasons why some of our patients or community members might need to register on paper rather than online. One reason is if they don't have a home address, and another reason is if they don't have either a social security number or a driver's license. If they don't have both of those things, then they will need to use the paper form. Wherever you are, if you're canvassing or sitting at a table, you should have printed copies of the paper registration form, but here's also a link in case you need to print something at the last minute. As you help them fill out this form, you are allowed to mail the form for them. So we will also provide you with printed envelopes, which will be addressed already to Philadelphia City Hall with a stamp. Or if you're out canvassing, you can bring all the filled out forms back to us and we will mail them for you. So if a person is experiencing homelessness, and that's maybe the reason why they need to use the paper form, then there is a section for them to be able to kind of draw a map of where they normally spend their time at an intersection, a street corner. And also Broad Street Ministry is a great nonprofit that has also offered to serve as the address of record for homeless patients who want to exercise their right to vote. So they can do either one. They can either put down Broad Street Ministry's address, or they can check it on this map. So then you're going to counsel them to make a plan to vote. You can let them know that voting by mail is still an option. They don't need an excuse to vote by mail, so they don't need to tell anybody, including you, why they might want to do that. But you could prompt them with some reasons in case they're confused about why that's an option. Maybe they're going to be out of town on election day. Maybe they're going to be at work all day or anticipate having some other issue that causes them trouble getting to the polls. Maybe they're immunocompromised and don't want to be exposed to COVID or other illnesses at the polls. Either way, they don't need an excuse and they can register their mail-in ballot online as long as they have a driver's license. If they have a Pennsylvania driver's license, then that means they have something called a PennDOT number. And that's one of the things they're going to need to be able to fill out this online application. And same thing here, if they don't have that PennDOT number, they don't have a driver's license, they can fill out a paper form. You will have printed copies of that paper form with you, and you are allowed to mail it for them. So again, if you're out canvassing, you can bring those back to the central location and the volunteer coordinator will mail them for you. And if you're at a table, you can put them in an envelope, which will be pre-addressed. So then you're going to kind of talk them through making a plan to vote. So you can use this online form to help them find their polling place in case they haven't voted in their particular neighborhood or at their address before. And then studies have shown that actually talking people through the plan of what they're going to do that day and helping them make the plan does really encourage them to vote on the day of. So encourage them to make a plan. Will you vote before work? Will you vote on the way home? Will you vote on the way to dropping the kids off at school? You know, whatever it is, if they pick a time, they're more likely to stick to it. And once they're there at the polling location or they're filling out their ballot, if they have questions, they can always call 1-877-VOTES-PA if they have trouble understanding anything. So in terms of how to have these conversations with patients and community members without crossing any lines, making sure your communication is nonpartisan, you want to use language like, voting is a great way to make sure your voice is heard. You can certainly tell people why you're voting. You just want to stay away from, information about actual policies or candidates. You can say that, you're voting because you want to make your choices known, because you want to have a say, because you're concerned about the future. Any of those statements are nonpartisan. You just should not tell people who you're voting for. You should not ask them who they are voting for. You should not urge them to vote for or against any particular candidate or ballot initiative. As the general election approaches, we can certainly provide you with nonpartisan election guides that usually come out in the weeks leading up to an election. So there's lots and lots of good guides out there. We will push those out to all our volunteers, and you can kind of keep them on hand, bookmark them, or bring a printed copy with you. And that way, if people have questions that veer into partisanship, you can always defer and say, this guide is really great and can help you answer some of these questions. So in terms of what the whole initiative looks like, Temple Health Votes is an initiative that has 3 main activities. You may have signed up for 1 or 2 or all 3 of these activities: tabling in a Temple hospital lobby, canvassing in the neighborhood, or day of emergency balloting. So just to reiterate one more time, if you're signed up for day of emergency balloting, then you should take an additional training, which is the day of emergency balloting training. That's because that process is a little bit complex and it's going to help you walk through all the steps. And in case you're not signed up, but you're interested, just so you know, day of emergency balloting is actually for patients who are hospitalized on election day and still want to exercise their right to vote. So you as a volunteer will act as their agent, help them fill out their ballot, and actually take their ballot to City Hall for them. A couple of frequently asked questions. I understand I have to be nonpartisan, but what if people ask me about candidates or policies? Obviously, you should not reveal your preferences or ask them for theirs. You should not tell them what party to vote for or what party you vote for. And just to offer you a little bit of language around this to help, you can say something like, since I work for Temple, or since I'm a student at Temple and I'm out here representing them, I can't offer you any advice that might be seen as choosing one party or candidate. There are guides that you can find online that can help you make a decision about who to vote for. So just a reminder, in the coming weeks and months, as those nonpartisan voter guides become available, we will make sure you have access to those, and that will make these conversations a little bit easier. Another question people ask, am I really allowed to help people fill out forms and mail documents for them? Yes, you actually are. So as long as the individual is signing their own forms, you are allowed to stand there with them and talk them through every single step of the process. You can mail forms for people. Technically, you can even drop completed and signed ballots in mailboxes for patients, though we recommend staying away from this if it's avoidable. If you happen to be in the hospital, you can have a patient walk their ballot or their completed form directly over to guest relations. Guest relations will mail it for them, or you can point them to a nearby mailbox. Last set of frequently asked questions. What if somebody is or asks about a family member who is in jail or prison? Just very important information for you to know that these people can vote in Pennsylvania. People who are in jail or prison who've been convicted of misdemeanors, not felonies. If you've been convicted of a misdemeanor, but you're currently in jail or prison, you can still vote. You just have to vote with an absentee ballot. People who are under house arrest, yes, you can still vote, but with an absentee ballot. People who are on probation or parole, feel free to vote. Go to your polling place if you like. People who are on parole or probation and living in a halfway house or a community corrections center. You've got to vote with an absentee ballot, and you cannot, unfortunately, use the address of the halfway house as your registration address. You have to use a previous or a future address. So that's kind of a weird little caveat in Pennsylvania. And then a lot of people are on pretrial detention. So they're being held in jail while they're waiting to go to trial. Those people can also vote, and they have to vote again with an absentee ballot since they will be unable to get to the polls. So that's all I have. Hopefully this was pretty quick and easy. Thank you so much for helping with this important initiative. If you have other questions or other things come up along the way, you can email Dr. Kaby. Her email address is right here. Thanks again, and we'll see you out there.